Sam Darnold. One thing that's really going to help out the Jags is the fact that the Jets just bleed fantasy points to the running back position. So I think that Fournette, is going to be a big factor in this game against the Jets. I think that he could run for over 100 and get a touchdown.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Ironically, though, the Jets are taking on the Jaguars in northern Florida off I-95. A week later, they get to come down I-95 south and take on the Miami Dolphins. And yet another, what you would think, winnable game for the Dolphins, but maybe not so much. So the I-95 tour continues in the Sunshine State back-to-back weeks for the Jets. But, yeah, I give the Jaguars the win as well. I think that they do get to the 500 mark. How effective do you think DJ Chark is going to be in this contest?
I think that he'll be much more effective. Really looking at how, again, it's we're talking about a different team, and with how the Jets play defense against the Patriots wide receivers, the Patriots wide receivers would have put up so many more points, so many more yards if it wasn't for the fact that they were getting. I can't remember how many pass interference and defensive holding penalties there were. There were so many in that game where if there wasn't that penalty, the Jets would, or the Patriots would have put up another 2 or 3 touchdowns in that game. So,
all right, let's go on to probably the biggest game of the week. I would say the Green Bay Packers against Kansas City Chiefs. With or without Mahomes, you still have Aaron Rodgers under center for the Packers. What do you have in this contest?
Well, I think that the Packers can put up another solid game. Jones is obviously the running back to own in this game. I think that he is going to be solid. The Chiefs here. Let me pull up, switch over my pages here. The Kansas City Chiefs have given up the 8th most amount of fantasy points to running backs, which really bodes well for not only for Aaron Jones, but especially in deeper leagues where someone may have a Jamal Williams to play as a running back too or as a flex. I think that he's going to have a solid game as well. I think that because of how well the Packers can go back and forth between the passing game and the running game, compared to the Broncos, a week and a half ago, where Kansas City was basically able to stop up the Broncos from doing anything because all they had to do was stop the run game, because Joe Flacco wasn't going to get anything really going in the passing game. The Packers can come at you in 2 different ways, and so it's going to force the Kansas City Chiefs to play 2 different modes of defense, which I think benefits the Packers. I think the Packers can go in and win this game. Okay,
the Cincinnati Bengals take on the Rams. The Rams have an opportunity to win against a team they should win and get the ship right. They did it against Atlanta, and now they get it against the Cincinnati Bengals, a team which is really lost in space. So how bad is it for the Queen City Cats?
They're awful. I think that this is really the only thing that they do well in terms of fantasy production is preventing wide receivers from doing too much. They're a top 10, or they're in the bottom 10 in terms of giving up fantasy points to the wide receiver position. However, in terms of the quarterback, the running back, and the tight ends, or the quarterback and running back, they give up the 5th most to the running back position and the most to the 5th most to the quarterback and the most amount of fantasy points to the running back position. So I think that Gurley is in for a big day. I think that that Goff will be in good shape, spreading the ball around to pretty much anyone he wants to in this game, whether he's dumping off to Gurley or something off to Gerald Everett. I think that no matter what, I think that the Rams are going to win this game, and just about anyone is going to be fantasy relevant for the Rams.
And the game that we were talking about earlier, we'll go do it again. The Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints. The Cardinals give up yards. They'd give them up to the Pope if the Pope could go ahead and run the football. But meanwhile, you have a pretty interesting matchup against 2 athletic quarterbacks with Murray and Teddy Bridgewater if he's playing. Or Breeze, well, what can I say? But how do you size up the Cardinals and the Saints?
Well, in terms of this game, the Cardinals give up lot of points to everyone. They're okay at stopping up the running back. 21st in terms of giving up fantasy points, but they give up the fourth most to the quarterback. They give up the most to the tight end still. However, I believe Jared Cook, we're still looking to see if Jared Cook is going to be healthy for this next week after missing last week's game. But the New Orleans Saints, they give up a ton of points to the quarterback and to the wide receiver. Anyone that Marshawn Lattimore is not covering gets yardage, because that's just the way that the New Orleans defensive backfield is working out right now. So I think that Murray can put up some points, and I think that the wide receivers could do a little bit of damage, especially Larry Fitzgerald as basically the security blanket. But I think the New Orleans Saints are going to win this one. Their defense, I think their defense is really has been top notch, and will do fine stopping up, keeping the Cardinals from doing much getting towards the end zone. They may put up a lot of yards, the Cardinals, and maybe score a couple touchdowns, maybe get a big play or two. But I think overall the New Orleans Saints are going to get enough takeaways and be able to stop things up for the Cardinals that they'll be fine, and that the Saints will win this game.
Well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to Nashville, Tennessee once every 8 years, and on Sunday they get to do it this time. You have Ryan Tannehill at the helm against Jameis Winston. Interesting matchup. What do you see there?
I honestly think that this could be a tough game for the Buccaneers. The Titans defense has been pretty solid overall. Tennessee Titans, they're the only position that they really bleed points to is the tight end, and the Buccaneers don't use tight ends. They throw it once to Cameron Brayton and then don't really throw it to O.J. Howard. So I think that the Buccaneers could be in trouble in this game. I know that they've shown their frustration with Jameis Winston. He's been throwing a lot of turnovers. Titans have been tough against quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers. I think that in terms of fantasy production, that Godwin could still be okay. He is really he's the security blanket for Jameis Winston. Mike Evans could struggle again, and we'll kind of see what they do in terms of the defense. So.
Yet, ironically, this was supposed to be Mariota against Jameis Winston. Boy, how things have changed there. Isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that?
Well, and if you think about it, Winston may be unemployed or he may be finding a new job after this season's over.
Oh, I agree with you. All right, so let's go to Indianapolis, where the Colts are taking on the Denver Broncos. John Elway's or Peyton Manning's old teams facing off against each other, but obviously a much different stage, much different time period. So the Broncos and the Colts, who you got?
In terms of this game, let me see. I'm going back into my notes. There we go. Broncos, Colts. I have the Colts. I think that the Broncos the Broncos can't play solid defense, but Brissett has been on the money the last couple weeks in terms of throwing, running when he needs to. The Broncos do bleed some points to the running back position, so as long as Brissett's able to use Marlon Mack pretty well in the run game, that could draw enough of the defense to be able to pass the ball, be effective there. The Broncos, again, they play solid defense, but again, we'll see. Flacco, I just don't trust him. I don't trust him to be a solid producer overall. So, and again, we'll kind of see what the split between Freeman and Lindsey will be. Really, the only difference, really, in their production overall, they usually get about the same amount of touches. It's just which guy's going to end up getting into the end zone.
See, Jacoby Brissett is just a product of having Frank Reich as his coach, and obviously we know that Frank Reich was a pretty good quarterback in his own right. So, and that's why I think the transition from Andrew Luck to Brissett has been a little bit more seamless. So let's talk about another potential lopsided game. The Seattle Seahawks going to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Two different birds squaring off. But, boy, I'll tell you what, doesn't look good for the team that plays off of I-75 in downtown Atlanta.
No, and I think the Seahawks will be ready to kind of prove themselves after the rough home loss. They have now lost 2 games at home, and this was only the second loss loss in the Russell Wilson era of more than 10 points or more. And that's not just at home. That's over the Russell Wilson era since 2012 when he was drafted. He's only had 2 losses of 10 points or more. And so I think that this is definitely a get-right game for them, just like it was for the Rams last week playing against Atlanta. Matt Ryan is dealing with a bum ankle. He's not going to have one of his more reliable weapons in Mohamed Sanu anymore.
Right.
However, he does that. Austin Hooper, the Seahawks. It could have been a lot worse for them last week. Mark Andrews dropped 3 passes when he was wide open last week, and the Seahawks are in the one of the worst teams in terms of giving up fantasy points to the tight end position. So I think if Ryan can stay upright and is able to get the ball to Austin Hooper could do some fantasy damage. Julio Jones is always a danger to any defense. And we'll see what Calvin Ridley can do. They very well could be without Devonta Freeman because of throwing the punch at, I figured a suspension probably would have been doled out by now. After Devonta Freeman was ejected last week for throwing a punch at Aaron Donald. So we'll see what the league does. I would have thought that a suspension would have happened by now if he was going to get suspended. But Freeman has struggled a little bit, of late. And so if something does happen to Freeman, they're down to Ito Smith, who is still in concussion protocol. So it's down to Brian Hill and Kadri Olison and Kenjon Barner as their running back options. So basically, they're going to be forced to pass against the Seahawks defense. That's middle of the road in terms of going up against the pass. So it just. The Falcons defense doesn't stop anyone. So they've given 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers, most points to quarterbacks, 10th most to the tight ends. So I just think that this could be a kind of high scoring game, but overall I think that this very well could be a bloodbath again for the Falcons as they continue their downward spiral.
All right, let's look at this interesting matchup: Philadelphia Eagles against the Buffalo Bills, 2 teams that play once every 4 years. They'll play once every 8 years in their respective locations like this. What do you think here? You've got Carson Wentz against Josh Allen. That's an interesting matchup when you look at it.
Yes, it is, because of the fact that both of them play similar type of roles. They both can run the ball. They both have solid arms. I think that Wentz has more weapons at his disposal. That being said, they're both going up against completely different defenses. The Buffalo Bills defense is one of the 5 best teams in terms of not giving up fantasy points to the quarterback, the wide receiver, or the tight end. And so they're about middle of the road in terms of giving up fantasy points to the running backs. But the Bills playing at home, I think, is a big plus for them. They've been able to stop. They made the Patriots offense look somewhat inept in the game against them. So, and really, that's been the only challenge the Patriots have had so far was going up against that Bills defense. So, I think that the Bills honestly probably come away with a win in this one. I think it could send the Eagles to 3-5 at this point.
Well, I like the Bills because they're playing at home, right there.
Yeah.
This is when home field really does matter.
Yeah, and like I said, the Bills are one of the top 5 defenses in again going against quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. While the Eagles are the worst team in terms they give up the most points to wide receivers in terms of fantasy, the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So right there, Allen could have a big day throwing to John Brown and Cole Beasley. That being said, if John Brown is healthy and ready to go, I believe he did not practice today. So I think he's going into it with a questionable mark in for this weekend. Dawson Knox, the young tight end, rookie tight end, could be in for a decent game.